private trains in India. Ministry of Railways is inviting private players to operate trains, right? To operate 150 modern trains over 100 railway routes, right? Ministry of Railways is inviting. And it is saying that by inviting private players into operating railways, around 30,000 crore investments can be brought into the railway sector, right? So in this context, we will be seeing what is the significance of bringing private players into railways, what are the benefits, what are some challenges in this step, and what should be the way forward, right? So to start with, before we discuss about private trains in India, let's first analyze the present scenario of railways. If we see the present scenario, railways can be broadly divided into two, right? Freight and passenger. Freight, F-R-E-I-G-H-T, freight based and passenger based. That means passenger based is nothing but we people boarding the train and using train for transport. Freight means transporting goods from one area to another area, right? So railways is basically servicing freight and also passenger, right? If we see the passenger section of railways, the entire operating of trains is in the hands of Indian Railways, right? The entire operating of trains is in the hands of government. In the case of passenger based railways, right? It's completely in the hands of Indian Railways. Whereas if we see the freight, that is for movement of goods and other things, in those areas, we have invited private players, but we don't have those many private people running trains, right? But in the passenger based section of railways, completely it's under the control of Ministry of Railways, right? Only in the freight based for industrial goods transportation, we have allowed private people. So now for a change, we are trying to bring in private people to operate these passenger trains, right? For the first time, we are trying to invite private players or private companies to come up with operating trains for passengers. So as a part of this, already 3 trains have been started. The first one was Tejas train. Tejas, T-E-J-A-S. You might have heard about this train. So this is Tejas train, which goes from Delhi to Lucknow, right? It connects Delhi to Lucknow in UP. So this train is being run by IRCTC. IRCTC is a commercial wing of Indian Railways, right? So this Tejas train is there, the first one. Second one also, there is another Tejas train from Mumbai to Ahmedabad, connecting Mumbai to Ahmedabad, right? So this train is there. And also we have Kashi Mahakal Express. Kashi Mahakal Express. This train connects Varanasi and Indore. Indore in Madhya Pradesh, right? Varanasi and Indore. So these are the 3 trains we have already started, right? These are being run by IRCTC, right? Previously, all the passenger based trains Indian Railways used to run, but now IRCTC has started running these 3 trains. So in this way, now as these 3 trains were successful up to some extent, now the government is planning to bring private players completely into these passenger trains services. So as a part of this, committee was also set up previously called Bibek Debroy Committee, right? Bibek Debroy Committee, B-I-B-E-K D-E-B-R-O-Y. This is the name of a person. So it's Bibek Debroy Committee. So this committee also way long back recommended liberalization of rail industry. That means inviting or giving scope for private companies in operating the passenger trains. Even this committee appointed by government also recommended this. And also if we see the present scenario, because of this COVID pandemic, 58% loss in revenue is there for Indian Railways, right? There is loss of revenue also for Indian Railways. As the railways have been stopped completely, 58% revenue loss is there for railways. So the railways as they were loss making from many years, year by year, and now because of this pandemic, further revenue loss is there. So they have planned for cost cutting plan, right? Cost cutting plan. So the railways is basically planning to cut down its operating costs. As a part of it, the railways have decided to give scope for private people to run the trains, right? So these are different present circumstances because of which the government is trying to give scope for private players in running the trains, right? So now if we see the overall process as to how it works now, previously as Indian Railways was taking care of all the passenger trains, there was no issue. But now the process is only the private players or the private companies will be running the trains. That's it, right? Signaling, maintenance of the railway tracks, the railway routes, railway lines, all these will still be under the control of Indian Railways, right? This we have to know. Only the private companies are being allowed to run their trains on these tracks, right? Signaling and everything is still under the control of Indian Railways. And revenue sharing model is adopted. What is this revenue sharing model? Now, because we are allowing private companies to run their trains, they will run their trains, they will make some profits. Out of that profits, some part they have to give to the government, right? This is like a license fees which the government is charging for giving permission to these private companies to run their trains. So revenue sharing model is the guiding thing in this contract, right? And third thing is, even the trains of these private companies also will be operated by drivers and guards of Indian Railways, right? Drivers and guards of Indian Railways. That means they need to have a minimum standards, right? Those standards also will be taken care by Indian Railways only. This is the third thing. And private companies are given the freedom to charge market-based prices, right? Based on the demand and supply, private companies are given the flexibility to charge the prices as they like, right? Based on the market conditions. So market linked prices, flexibility was given to the private companies. And also there is another rule which the railway says that each train which the private companies are planning to run in the railway routes, they need to have minimum 16 coaches, right? This is also a rule that was brought. So this is the overall process how it works, right? The private companies only run or operate the train, right? The tracks, the signaling, the regulatory functions, all these still are under the control of Indian Railways. And this is not privatization of railways. That also we have to know, right? This is not privatization of Indian Railways. Indian Railways still continues to be under the control of Ministry of Railways completely, right? It is a departmental undertaking, right? It is a departmental undertaking under the Ministry of Railways. We are not selling any shares or we are not selling any stakes of Indian Railways, right? We are only allowing private companies to run their trains on the railway tracks. That's it, right? So this is liberalization of rail industry, not privatization of Indian Railways, right? Indian Railways is still completely under the control of Ministry of Railways. This thing we need to have a clarity. So now what are some benefits? There are a lot of benefits which the revenue ministry estimates by bringing in private companies. First thing is decongestion of Indian Railways. Decongestion of Indian Railways. That means we can see now there is huge congestion. There is huge demand supply problem, right? Demand for a train from one place to another is so much high, but supply of trains is less, because of which there is congestion in the railways. So to reduce this congestion, to increase number of trains between important cities, this step is being taken, right? This is the first benefit. Demand supply mismatch can be reduced, right? Second thing is modern technology will be introduced. As we are giving scope for private players, definitely modern technology will be introduced to railways. And also maintenance cost burden on the Indian railways will reduce. Right? This is the third benefit. Maintenance cost, now the operating cost, everything will not be on Indian railways. Private players will be seeing all those. So maintenance cost burden on Indian railways will reduce. And also job creation will also increase. How will job creation increase? Because we are giving permission for private companies, manufacturing of the trains, financing, operation of the trains, maintenance of the trains, all these had to be done by the private companies, right? So this generates a lot of jobs. So job creation is boosted by this step. And also the railway ministry says that safety will be enhanced by bringing private companies. Because they have the modern technologies, safety will be enhanced. And also by bringing in private companies, we can provide world-class travel experience, right? World-class travel experience. The quality of the services can be improved for the people, right? And in the words of railways, the words of Ministry of Railways, it said yesterday that the running time of the trains will be reduced, right? Efficiency will be improved. There will be no delays. There will be no delays in departure and arrival times of the trains. Running time will reduce and railways will become so much fast than the fastest train of Indian Railways. It said that the trains will be moving so fast that they will be faster than the fastest train of Indian Railways now. This is the statement told by Ministry of Railways. Right? So in this way, these are all the benefits which we have. And also by bringing private companies, there will be a healthy competition between the private companies and our Indian railways. Right? We know the quality of services, the problem in quality of services in the railways presently. Right? By bringing the private companies, competition, a healthy competition can be generated, and even this departmental undertaking, which is the Indian Railways, will also start trying to give better quality of service to the people, right? Because there is competition now, right? So these are all the benefits by introducing private companies to operate trains. Now, what are some issues? There are some challenges also. The first challenge is challenge in connectivity, right? So what is this challenge in connectivity? We may not ensure entire pan-India connectivity if we bring in private players, because just imagine private companies operate trains for profits. Any business they do is for profits, right? For the market. So wherever market demand is there, say between Bombay to Ahmedabad or Bombay to Delhi, they will be increasing the trains because they are remunerative routes, right? 24/7, there will be demand in these routes. But what about the rural areas? What about the remote areas? Their demand will be less, right? Demand will be less, and they are not that much remunerative routes also. So in this way, profit-based decisions will be taken and nationwide connectivity may not be possible, right? Accessibility and availability of trains may be an issue, right? And trains network may not be inclusive. And the present divide which we have between rural and urban areas might increase more, right? In urban areas, we might be having good train connectivity, and in rural areas, we may not be having, right? Because private companies operate on profit motive. So this is the first issue. Limited coverage. This is the first issue. We may not, or it is difficult to ensure pan-India connectivity. Second thing is prices. As the government has given the flexibility to the private companies to adjust market-linked prices, definitely affordability by lower income groups or the poor people will be definitely an issue. Based on demand and supply, because demand is increasing, the private companies can go to an extent of increasing the prices. Now, affordability issues will be coming, right? Especially for the poor people. This is the second issue. Third issue is accountability, right? Accountability. How accountable the private companies will be. As we can see, the gas leaks or some issues even in the medical sector, we can see that with private companies, ensuring accountability is difficult, right? So if we give railways, which is a strategic sector, into the hands of private companies, what is the accountability if accidents happen, right? That is the third thing. Fourth thing is absence of an independent regulator. Now this is a very interesting point, because if we see who is presently the regulator of Indian Railways, it is the Indian Railways. So Indian Railways is the regulator, and Indian Railways is also the operator of trains. Now we are introducing private companies into this business. Now can we ensure a level playing field? Because Indian Railways will be operating the train, and also Indian Railways will be regulating all the trains, right? There is a conflict of interest here. Level playing field may not be there. This is also an issue, right? Politicization is possible. So this is an issue. And also unemployment issue is also raised, because as we are giving more chance to private companies, there may be loss of railway jobs in the long run, right? There may be loss of railway jobs because we are outsourcing, or we are giving some functions which were before done by Indian Railways to private companies now. So now all these jobs will be lost, railway jobs, right? That is also an issue. And there are also good chances of monopoly by private companies. What is monopoly? All the private companies, or only few private companies, deciding the prices and deciding the routes, right? If this happens, then customer won't be having that much choice. Quality of service won't be improving. They will be charging huge prices, right? So monopoly by private companies is also possible. That is also a challenge. And the other challenge comes from the trade unions. As of now, we have trade unions. What are these trade unions? The railway workers, the employees of the railways, all these, they form trade unions, right? To protect their labor rights. Now, these are under insecurity, saying that this is a step towards privatization of railways. If we see the aviation sector, the nature of Air India and the nature of other companies, we can get an estimate. Even in the roadways also, the nature of RTC and the nature of private buses, we can easily make it out that when private players come into picture, it is difficult for the state-run entities to make profits. Mostly they were going to loss make, because they are unable to compete with the technology of the private people. They are unable to compete with the efficiency of the private people, right? So now these trade unions are under insecurity that their jobs might be at loss, right? This is a step towards privatization. So all these are some challenges which are raised if private companies are brought. And the important challenge is problem to agriculture and industries. Now, if private companies start charging huge rates for freight, that is for transportation of goods, then it will be difficult for farmers and also for industries for transportation of raw materials and finished products, right? So logistics cost might increase. This is also a challenge. Especially farmers might be affected if the private companies increase prices hugely. So these are all some of the challenges. So then what should be the way forward? Like if we see, railways is said to be a common man's transport in India, right? It is a common man's transport in India. But then we have to ensure that it is accessible, affordable, and available to all the citizens of India, right? So here another alternative that is suggested is, why can't we transform Indian Railways into a corporation rather than bringing in private companies? That means rather than keeping this Indian Railways directly under the control of Ministry of Railways, why can't we make it a company? Why can't we give it some autonomy so that it can take decisions on its own, right? Then politicization will be less, right? Rationality will come. Based on demand, supply, profits, losses, accordingly decisions will be taken. Just for populism or just for appealing people, they may not be reducing the train prices, right? Based on all the factors, they will take decisions wisely. So why can't it transform our Indian Railways into a corporation? Why can't we transform it into a company? Why can't we give the autonomy to it? This is one suggestion which is made. Why can't we modernize our Indian railways rather than bringing private companies who are modern? Right? This is one suggestion that is given. Second suggestion is, rather than outsourcing core functions like operating of railways and all these, give non-core functions to private companies. Rather than giving away operating of trains to private companies, give away all the non-core functions. That means maintenance of cleanliness in the trains, right? Hospitality in the trains, hotel management in the trains, right? All these services which are there in the trains, these you can give to the private companies, and you can continue to operate trains only by the hands of government. This is the second suggestion that is given. So overall, if we see, socio-economic development of the country is our main importance, right? Capitalism, that is increasing more and more scope for private players. Capitalism should only be a means to achieve socio-economic development. Capitalism should not become the end. What is means and end? Means capitalism should be a mechanism or a way through which we can achieve our socio-economic development, right? Capitalism should not be made the end. It should not be the last goal or the final goal, right? So this should be the way forward, and accordingly railways should be given to the private players.